You want to know my story? All right, pull up a chair and listen close because this ain't the kind of tale you hear every day. My name's Carlos, though that wasn't always what people called me on the streets. I'm sitting here in my small house in Guadalajara, watching my kids play in the yard, and sometimes I can't believe this is my life now. But to understand how I got here, you need to know where I came from. I grew up in East LA, in a neighborhood where hope was as scarce as a clean needle in a crack house. My old man split when I was 7, left my mum with 3 kids and a pile of bills that seemed to grow faster than we did. She worked 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. And even then, sometimes we'd eat cereal by candlelight when the power got cut. I'm not making excuses for what I became, but when you're 14 and hungry and some older cat rolls up in a fresh Impala, offering you $200 just to stand on a corner and watch for cops, well, that money starts looking real good. At first, it was just lookout stuff. Easy money, I told myself. I'd stand there with a prepaid phone, send a text if I saw a patrol car coming. $200 for a few hours of standing around. Man, I thought I'd hit the lottery. But the streets, they're like quicksand. The more you struggle to get out, the deeper you sink. By the time I was 16, I was running packages. By 18, I was carrying a piece. By 21, I had my own corner and a crew of kids looking up to me the same way I'd looked up to the guys before me. The thing about crime is that it promises you everything and delivers nothing but paranoia and pain. Sure, I had money. I had respect, or what I thought was respect but was really just fear. I had women, cars, gold chains heavy enough to anchor a boat, but I also had to sleep with a gun under my pillow, had to check my rearview mirror every 30 seconds, had to wonder if today was the day one of my own would decide I was worth more dead than alive. The night everything changed started like any other. We were moving a big shipment, couple kilos of pure Colombian that would set us up for months. But somebody talked. Somebody always talks. The DEA hit us like a hurricane. I remember the door exploding inward, the flashbang grenades that made my ears ring for days after, the feeling of cold concrete against my face as they pressed me down and cuffed me. In that moment, lying there with a knee in my back and my freedom evaporating like morning mist, I realized that every choice I'd made had led me to this exact spot. They gave me 25 to life. Armed trafficking, possession with intent, conspiracy, and a bunch of other charges that the prosecutor rattled off like he was reading a grocery list. My lawyer, some overworked public defender who probably had 50 cases just like mine, told me to take the plea deal, so I did. And just like that, I went from Carlos the shot caller to inmate 78432. Maximum security federal prison is nothing like what you see in the movies. It's worse. It's a concrete tomb where time moves like molasses and violence hangs in the air like smoke. Every day is a battle just to maintain your humanity. The guards treat you like animals, and after a while, you start to believe that's what you are. I saw men lose their minds in there, literally forget who they were before those walls. I promised myself I wouldn't become one of them. For 5 years, I played by the rules, kept my head down, didn't join any gangs inside, just tried to serve my time. But 25 years, that's a lifetime. That's watching your kids grow up in photographs if they even bother to send them. That's your woman moving on with someone else because she can't wait for a ghost. That's your mother dying while you're locked in a cage, unable to say goodbye. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. The idea of escape started as a fantasy, something to keep my mind occupied during the endless hours of lockdown. But the more I thought about it, the more it transformed from fantasy to possibility to plan. See, every prison has its weaknesses. Guards who can be bought, routines that never change, blind spots in the cameras. You just need to be patient enough to find them and crazy enough to exploit them. I found my crew slowly, carefully. You can't just walk up to someone in the yard and say, "Hey, want to break out?" That's how you end up in solitary or worse. No, you feel people out, drop hints, watch their reactions. Eventually, I had 4 guys I trusted enough to bring in. Miguel, a former Mexican Special Forces soldier doing time for killing his wife's lover. Tommy, a computer genius who got caught hacking banks. Joaquin, a second-generation car thief who could hotwire anything with an engine. And Big Dave, a former corrections officer who knew how prisons worked from both sides. The plan took 18 months to put together. 18 months of stolen moments, whispered conversations in the yard, notes passed through the library books. Tommy managed to get access to the prison's work computers during his job in the administrative office. He studied the guard rotations, memorized the camera angles, even found the blueprints from when the prison was built in 1987. There was a weakness in the southeast corner, where they'd done some renovation in 2003. The new wall didn't quite match up with the old foundation. There was a gap maybe 18 inches wide that ran under the wall. It was filled with concrete, but concrete can be chipped away if you have time and the right tools. Miguel had connections on the outside, guys from his military days who owed him favors. Through coded letters to his cousin, he arranged for tools to be smuggled in. Nothing obvious, just everyday items that could be modified. A metal comb that could be sharpened into a chisel. Dental floss that, when braided together, became strong as rope. Batteries from the commissary radio that could be used to short-circuit electronic locks. The kitchen was key to everything. Joaquin worked there, and over months he'd been stealing small amounts of bleach and ammonia. Mix those together and you get chlorine gas, not enough to kill anyone, but enough to cause chaos and evacuation. Big Dave knew that during a chemical emergency, protocol was to move all inmates to the yard while the building was cleared. That would be our window. We picked a Tuesday night in March. Tuesday because it had the lightest guard rotation. March because of the rain. Rain meant lower visibility, and the sound would cover a lot of noise. Everything had to be perfect. One mistake and we'd either be dead or spend the rest of our lives in solitary. The night of the escape, my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. At 9:47 p.m., Joaquin started the chemical reaction in the kitchen. Within minutes, the alarms were screaming. Guards were shouting, inmates were coughing and covering their faces. In the chaos, as everyone was being herded to the yard, our crew slipped away. We had memorized every step, practiced it 1,000 times in our minds. The gap under the wall was tighter than we thought. Big Dave almost didn't make it through, and for a terrifying moment I thought we'd have to leave him. But Miguel and I pulled while Tommy and Joaquin pushed, and finally he popped through like a cork from a bottle. We were outside the walls, but we weren't free yet. The prison would discover us missing within minutes. This is where Joaquin's skills came in. 300 yards from the wall, hidden in a drainage ditch, was an old Ford pickup. He'd had his contacts leave there 2 days earlier. It was beat to hell, rusty and inconspicuous, but Joaquin had that engine purring in 15 seconds. We piled in and drove, keeping to back roads, avoiding highways where they'd set up roadblocks. The first vehicle swap happened at an abandoned gas station 20 miles out. Miguel's contacts had left a minivan there, complete with fake plates and registration. We torched the pickup, changed into civilian clothes that were waiting in the van, and kept moving. Every siren we heard made us freeze. Every cop car was a potential end to our freedom. By dawn, we'd switched vehicles 3 more times. Each swap was planned weeks in advance, each location scouted through Google Earth printouts Tommy had managed to study. We split up in Tucson. It was safer that way. 5 escaped convicts together would draw attention, but separately we could disappear into the crowd. I headed south toward Mexico. I had a contact there, someone from the old days who owed me a favor. The border crossing was the most terrifying part. I had fake papers, a whole new identity that had cost me every penny I'd had stashed away, but would they hold up? The border guard looked at my passport, looked at me, looked back at the passport. Those 10 seconds felt like 10 years. Then he stamped it and waved me through. I was free. Mexico was supposed to be temporary, just a place to lay low until the heat died down. But something happened that I never expected. Her name was Elena, and I met her in a small cafe in Guadalajara where I'd been washing dishes for cash, trying to stay invisible. She was a teacher, had never been involved with anyone from my world. She saw something in me that I'd forgotten existed. Not Carlos the criminal, but Carlos the man who could be something more. I should have run when I felt myself falling for her. A fugitive has no business falling in love. But Elena had this way of making me believe I could be different, that my past didn't have to define my future. When she told me she was pregnant 6 months later, I made a decision. I couldn't run anymore. I had to become the man she thought I was, the father my child deserved. We got married in a small church outside the city. No guests from my side, obviously. I told Elena I had no family left, which wasn't entirely a lie. My old life, my old family, they were dead to me now. We had our first son, then a daughter 2 years later, then another son. Each child was another anchor, keeping me grounded in this new life, another reason to never go back to what I was. I found work in construction, honest work that left me exhausted, but satisfied, in a way crime never had. There's something about building something with your hands, creating instead of destroying. My boss didn't ask questions about my past, and I didn't volunteer answers. In Mexico, sometimes it's better not to know. But the guilt, man, the guilt never leaves. Not for the escape, I don't regret that, but for everything that came before. The kids I recruited into the life, knowing what it would do to them. The families destroyed by the drugs I pushed. The example I set for all those young ones who looked up to me. I wake up sometimes at 3 a.m., sweating, remembering faces of people I hurt. There's no escaping that prison, the one you carry in your conscience. My oldest son is 14 now, the same age I was when I started in the game. Sometimes I watch him with his friends, and I see myself at that age, standing at that crossroads between right and wrong. I've told him stories, carefully edited versions of my past, warnings disguised as fiction. I tell him about the friends I lost, the ones who died before they hit 25. I tell him about the paranoia, the constant fear, the emptiness of having everything but being nothing. Freedom isn't just being outside of prison walls. I learned that the hard way. Real freedom is being able to walk down the street without looking over your shoulder. It's watching your kids play without wondering if your enemies will find them. It's sleeping through the night without nightmares of cell doors slamming shut. It's the weight that lifts off your chest when you realize you don't have to be that person anymore. But here's what I want you to understand, whoever's reading this. The streets, the crime life, it's all a lie. Every promise it makes is broken before the words leave its mouth. That money? It comes with blood on it that won't wash off. That respect? It's just fear wearing a mask. That power? It's an illusion that disappears the second the handcuffs click shut. I think about the kids still out there, standing on corners, thinking they're smart, thinking they've got it figured out. They don't know they're already in prison, one made of bad choices and violent consequences. The walls might be invisible, but they're closing in with every package sold, every gun pulled, every line crossed. Sometimes Elena asks me about my past, especially when the news shows something about escaped convicts being caught. I tell her I made mistakes when I was young, which is true. I tell her I've paid for them, which is also true, just not in the way she thinks. She doesn't know about the federal warrant with my name on it, about the fact that I can never go back to the States, never see my mother's grave, never make peace with the family I left behind. My children don't know their father is a fugitive. They think I'm just a hard-working immigrant who made good in Mexico. Someday I'll have to tell them the truth, or maybe I won't. Maybe some truths are better buried, especially when digging them up serves no purpose except to destroy the good that's been built on top of them. I work with youth programs now, volleyball coaching at the community center. I see kids who remind me of myself, angry at the world, looking for quick solutions to complicated problems. I try to guide them without preaching, try to show them there are other ways to be strong, other ways to be respected. Sometimes I get through to them, sometimes I don't. But I keep trying because every kid I help stay straight is a small payment on a debt I can never fully repay. The other guys from the escape? I don't know what happened to most of them. That was part of the deal. No contact after we split. I heard Tommy got caught 6 months later trying to cross into Canada. Big Dave supposedly made it to Brazil. Miguel and Joaquin, who knows? Maybe they're living lives like mine, trying to be better than they were. Or maybe they're back in the game, or back in prison, or dead. That's how these stories usually end. People ask me sometimes, usually after a few beers when tongues get loose, if I believe in redemption. Can a bad man become good? Can you wash blood off your hands with holy water and honest work? I don't know the theological answer to that. But I know that every morning I wake up, I make a choice. I choose to be a father instead of a fugitive. I choose to build instead of destroy. I choose love over fear, creation over chaos. The man who escaped that prison doesn't exist anymore. He died somewhere between the border and that cafe where I met Elena. In his place stands someone else, someone trying to earn the life he's living, trying to deserve the family he's been blessed with. It's not about forgetting the past, because I never will. It's about not letting it define your future. If you're reading this and you're in the life or thinking about getting in, listen to someone who's been all the way to the bottom and clawed his way back up. It's not worth it. Whatever you think you're going to gain, you'll lose 10 times more. Whatever problem you're trying to solve with crime, you're just creating bigger problems. The money isn't worth your freedom. The respect isn't worth your soul. The power isn't worth your life. And if you're reading this and you're where I was, locked up with decades stretching ahead of you like a highway through the desert, know this. Change is possible. Not easy, maybe not even likely, but possible. You can become someone different, someone better. It doesn't erase what you did, but it can balance the scales a little. Every good choice chips away at the mountain of bad ones. I watch my kids playing in the yard now, and I think about parallel universes. In one, I never took that first corner job, went to college maybe, became something legitimate. In another, I never got caught, became a kingpin maybe, died young and violent. In yet another, I'm still in that federal prison, growing old behind bars, forgotten by everyone except the system that holds me. But this is the universe I'm in. The one where I'm an escaped convict who found a second chance in a foreign country, who traded his old life for a new one, who learned that freedom isn't just about being outside the walls, it's about being free from the person you used to be. The sun is setting now over Guadalajara, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Elena is calling me in for dinner. My kids are arguing about whose turn it is to set the table. It's a normal life, a boring life by some standards. No fast cars, no stacks of cash, no crew looking up to me. Just a man, his family, and the weight of secrets that get a little lighter every year. This is freedom. Not the breaking out, but the breaking free. Not the escape from prison, but the escape from the prisoner. Every day I don't go back to what I was is another day of success. Every night I tuck my kids into bed is a victory over my past. So that's my story. Take from it what you will. Judge me if you want, I've earned that. But know that I judge myself harsher than you ever could. And know that if someone like me can change, can find peace, can build something good from the wreckage of something bad, then maybe there's hope for everyone. The streets called me a soldier. The system called me a criminal. The prison called me a number. But here, in this small house in Guadalajara, I'm just called Papa. And that's the only title I want anymore. Freedom is a funny thing. You can break out of every prison except the one you build in your own mind. But with time, with love, with purpose, even those walls can come down. Brick by brick, day by day, choice by choice. I am free now, not because I escaped, but because I finally stopped running.